Let's Take This Outside with Marianne Iveson, the podcast where she speaks to athletes, outdoor professionals, and scientists about why they connect with nature.
Emma Terrell, also known as the urban botanist, is a passionate advocate for sustainable living and eco-conscious design. After completing a biology degree at Carleton University in Ottawa, she started her business in 2017 that was created with the intention to connect her community with the natural world around them. From lush moss walls to DIY terrariums and even rewilding landscapes, Emma inspires others to embrace sustainability in both style and function, making her a sought-after expert in the green design world. Please give a warm welcome to the urban botanist, Emma Terrell. Emma, I'm so happy to finally have you on Let's Take This Outside.
I'm excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
So I didn't know this before we started recording, but I want to describe your background. It's like these big, beautiful floor-to-ceiling windows with like nature outside. You have like wood walls. And I'm like, is she in Chelsea, Quebec? Like, is it weird that I recognized it? I'm like, she's probably in Chelsea.
There's something about like the architecture I find with like Quebec homes, especially Chelsea homes, that it's almost like visually you see it and you're like, it kind of checks out. And the wooded background, like, yeah.
Yeah, very much checks out. I always love seeing what people have, or mugs. It's one of that, mugs or backgrounds. So we met, it feels like 5,000 years ago. I don't know what year it was. But it was at the Ottawa Home, I think it was like the Ottawa Home and Garden Show.
Ottawa Home and Garden Show.
I think we were just chatting because we instantly got along and I instantly liked you. And you were so sweet and like so perfect for what you do. But you were like, had a big moss wall. I'm like, what is this? And so it's so funny, like full circle, like so many years later. And now I'm asking you about the moss walls on my podcast.
I'm glad we're finally getting to have the conversation.
Emma, I know you're into nature, you're into plants, but where did that start for you?
I don't have a memory without loving nature, honestly. It definitely started from a very young age. I spent a lot of summers from 2 years old, from when I could walk, camping in the thick bush, like proper camping, not in an RV, not in a cabin. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but, you know, in the thick of it with my dad and my mom. And my dad was really into ornithology, birding. We had telescopes growing up as kids. We had all the binoculars. We had all the nature books. Like my dad really was enthralled by the world around him. And it definitely planted that seed into me as a kid. But yeah, it definitely started as a young age, you know, picking up snakes, grabbing bugs, like bringing them home. I literally had, as a child, and not even a child, like into my young teenage years, my bedroom was basically a terrarium. Like I think back and I'm not surprised that where I am today as an adult doing terrariums and like having my own terrarium room now, because when I was a kid, I had like an aquarium with turtles in it, an aquarium with fish, an aquarium with mice. And then those mice had babies. And then those babies had an aquarium. And then I just had like newts and salamanders and all the like snakes, all the random pets, even stuff I'd bring home. And bless my parents, they were so like, you know, flexible and lovingly let me explore that tender love that I had and still have for nature. But yeah, that's definitely where it started for me was, I guess, birth. I don't know.
You know what's so funny is my sister, who's a bit older than me, she had like a couple snakes growing up, and they always scared me. But we'd have like frozen mice in the freezer, and like
yeah, that was definitely me. I'm not gonna lie, it was weird, but I was just into it. Yeah.
And a couple years ago, full circle, she got her horticulture diploma.
Oh, no kidding!
Like full circle, right? You like, there's a certain kind of person that had snakes growing up and then got their diploma.
I think so. You know, there's a saying that people who have snakes as pets, there's something a little bit off about them. And I'm like, you know what? Probably. And I am in that category without a doubt.
So the Urban Botanist is such an incredibly cool business. And I don't want to say jealous is not the right word, but I love to see how you've made a business out of your love of plants. It is so impressive. So what point were you like, I want to make this into a business?
It kind of just happened. It wasn't ever really like a plan. I always knew that I wanted to own my own business. And I remember saying that at a very young age to like my parents or to friends or to like ex-boyfriends, like, I'm going to own my own business. I'm going to run my own business. Like in the very, very early stages of being in university, and all of them being like, in what? Okay, well, what kind of business are you going to own? And I was like, I don't know. But it will be something. So I think there was always just that entrepreneurial like gene within me. There was lots of little other startups that I did in high school that I won't get into, but just little things here and there that it kind of checked out. But I started the Urban Botanist, ironically, the same month that I wrote my final exams and graduated from Carleton University. I was studying biology and specifically entomology, which for your listeners, if they don't know, is the study of insects. Super random. I loved it. My parents were like, what are you doing with this? Come on, what's going on? Started the Urban Botanist, which it started out of just my own personal need and want to connect with nature. I just wanted to call it something, but really I was, juggling a full-time job. I was a flight attendant at the time, juggling university, a social life. I like part-time bartended. I had all of these balls that I was trying to keep up in the air, and was feeling really disconnected from that like deep-rooted love for nature. That's kind of where the seed started to grow. Was I saw a book about terrariums. I picked up this book and I was like, oh my gosh, I've always wanted to learn about these or make one. And so I started making them. I made them for fun. I really was just fascinated with the idea that you could create and capture a tiny ecosystem into a glass vessel and have it on your coffee table. I just thought that was so cool as somebody who has spent so much of their lives completely, surrounded in our local ecosystems. I wanted to like take a piece of that indoors and garden under glass, so to say, and just connect with nature. I just became obsessed. I kept making terrariums. Then I ended up selling terrariums to like friends, my mom's friends, random people. But what I really noticed the interest for was people wanted to learn about them as well. People wanted to make their own. And I love sharing my passion in a educational and inspiring way. So the two kind of went hand in hand, and I started like hosting small groups of like terrarium workshops. And because I am so passionate about this topic, I think that's what kind of lended a hand to the success of the Urban Botanist. Was people really, really leaned into my passion and wanted to learn more about what a terrarium was, what are ecosystems, how do they function.
And what does the Urban Botanist look like in 2025?
It's definitely changed a lot. In 2025 today, we've gone from, I say we, but it is just me. Of course, I have a team and I have a community that I've built. So I do say we because I feel like I'm an extension of so many other people that are part of it. Today looks like products, services, and content. So it started out as sort of an events company, Plant Night. We were doing terrarium workshops all around the city, all across Canada even. I was traveling to different cities to do them. Events, products, I now package and sell the terrariums as like DIY kits. I have a full line of like 8 different types of DIY kits. I still do workshops, but in a virtual setting. That kind of changed during the pandemic, where it was great because I went from doing plant nights with 10, 15, maybe 20 people at a local coffee shop or restaurant or boardroom to like 200, 300 people in a virtual space. So I still do that. And the other newer-ish, we've been doing it for like 6 years now, but the other newer part of the Urban Botanist is moss walls. So vertical green walls.
I was going to ask you about moss walls in a couple seconds, but I need to know because like people want to learn about this. I think especially in COVID, a lot of people like discovered outside.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, totally.
People are like, oh,
Wait a minute.
Wait, so if I spend time getting vitamin D and surrounded by green space, I feel good?
What a concept, right?
Weird. What are the benefits of bringing the outdoors indoors and having greenery around us inside?
Well, I mean, I could go on and on about this, and I guess that's what the podcast is for, but I truly believe that we as human beings have an innate need for nature. We need it. It is in our DNA. we need to be close to it. We need to interact with it. That's so much like leads to this space that I'm in right now. And I've tried to blend that into every facet of my life is finding different ways that I can intentionally connect with nature, because I think that human beings, we've evolved alongside nature. Like we are not separate from it. We are part of it. And I think that if you go too many days, weeks, God forbid, months without that interaction, that there's a piece of you that doesn't feel fulfilled. There's a piece of you that you'll kind of be searching for in different ways. And sometimes that can look like depression. That can look like anxiety. That can look like chronic fatigue. That can look like a lack of creativity, productivity. Like I tell people, if you're not feeling creative, productive, or a sense of inspiration, go for a walk in the woods. Like it can be that easy.
I've had multiple like athletes and scientists, and like the common theme is that the outdoors are healing. And a lot of athletes specifically don't notice that like they haven't been outside in a while until they don't feel good. They're like, say it's winter and they're not training as much. Like, why don't I feel so good? And then they realize it because it's the absence of the outdoors and nature, right?
Yeah, we're meant to be outside. We're not meant to be caged up in these offices with fluorescent lighting in your basement apartment. Like, don't get me wrong. I understand that some of this is necessary to, live and make a living for yourself. But it's making that intentional step to go outside and get a breath of fresh air, to maybe make a terrarium, grow indoor plants, grow your own food. There are so many different ways that no matter what category your life kind of falls into, if you're an urban dweller, you're suburban, you live out in the woods like I do, it doesn't really matter. There are so many ways that you can connect with nature. And that's what I really feel is a huge calling of mine, and a huge part of why I started the Urban Botanist was because I really feel a sense of just my dharma being fulfilled by inspiring people to connect with nature, even if it's recognizing an insect that you've never noticed before. Instead of squashing it, it's like, oh, that's really cool. Wow. These like just ants alone are so fascinating to me. And I think that the more you understand and learn about nature, the more you respect it and the more you feel a little bit connected to yourself, because again, you evolved from nature. So that connection is so important.
Tell me more about moss walls. Yeah. And how do they stay alive in indoor spaces? Because I've seen them a lot in businesses lately.
Yeah, moss walls are a question that I get asked about all the time, and they seem to sort of like perplex people. And that's another huge reason that I love working with that material is it's curiosity pulling. It pulls you in like, oh, what is that? I want to touch it. I want to feel it. I want to smell it. How does it work? Like, wow, I never realized how beautiful moss is. And that's another whole category that I'm just obsessed with is bryophytes, is moss. But the moss walls that we design, fabricate, and install is 100% real moss, but it is 100% preserved. So that means it's no longer living. And that's that I really do have to explain to people when they're looking at it. It's like, how does it live? How does it work? How does it stay green? And it is because it has been preserved. And I can dive deeper into what that process looks like. But essentially by preserving the moss, they last for up to 10 years. They'll never die, decay, mold, fade. You don't need to prune them, water them. They don't need sunlight. So they're a really great way to add a pop of greenery into a low lit space or into commercial space, as you mentioned, where maybe you don't want to add another task to the staff. You want to invest in like a beautiful wall to boost your brand without the added like maintenance of a living wall. So moss walls are a great option for that.
So are you like installing moss walls in businesses then? Is that what's or people's homes?
Yeah, both. We do commercial and residential spaces. More commercial, I would say. But just last month, we installed like an 8-foot tall by 5 feet wide dark green reindeer moss into someone's living room in Westboro. So it was sort of like a swap out for maybe what you would do with like wallpaper, or if you were to build like a fireplace and the TV was mounted on top. So it was just like a really beautiful way to break up the room. Yeah, it was gorgeous. And then commercial, everything and anything. We do lots of like branded walls for like selfie spaces. Like we just did a smoothie bar called Juice Dudes out in Orleans. They we built their logo into it, and we create these walls that have an impact on the space so that when you walk in and first enter, it's the first thing that you see, experience. And that's really like the beauty of biophilic design, is like bringing nature indoors and incorporating it into spaces that may not otherwise engage with nature. It immediately just gives that feeling of like calmness, of wow, of connection. So I've really enjoyed working with moss in that capacity, because it's kind of opened up a new door for bringing nature indoors and encouraging people to engage with it in that way.
Thanks for sharing, because in my bio, it says my like passions are like outdoor stuff, including like cycling, cross-country skiing, and like staring at mossy rock walls, which is one of my favorite nature features. So I just needed to hear.
I could not agree more. There is a rock on my front lawn,
right?
Like covered in moss. And I just moved into this house in August. So when my partner and I were looking at homes, whatever, this was actually the second place we saw, and it was immediate, like, no, this is where we need to live. I'm sorry. And what did it for me was the mossy covered rock. It brought me to tears. It brought me to tears. I was like, oh my God, it's a boulder. This
mossy boulder is why I need to live here, right?
There's something about it.
Honestly, that would draw me into, like, 100% into, if that was on my property, in.
Like, you know what? Forget all the other bits. I just want this boulder. This mossy boulder has sold me.
With sustainability often seen as a luxury, how can everyday people begin to incorporate more eco-conscious design into their lives without a big budget?
I love that question. I think you're totally right that sustainability isn't necessarily accessible for everyone. A lot of products that are more green or organic are just a lot more expensive and just, not accessible to everyone. And I find that is really frustrating in a world that absolutely needs it, not only for like regenerative agriculture purposes, but also for human health. Like, we as humans need easier access to these products that are less harsh on our bodies. I mean, I think that some of the practices that I do that make me also just feel good is just the simple act of reuse, reduce, recycle. Like, if I have a sweater, or I have a beautiful pair of mitts that I've had for 10 years. They're leather on the outside. They're from Roots, and they have a big hole in the front. And I couldn't bring myself to throw them out, or, because I'm like, they're just beautiful. So I looked into finding a patch that I could just like patch the glove, and like, they've got this like weird patch on it, but I kind of wear it as a badge of honor. It's like, I didn't throw these gloves out. I just patched them and they're perfectly good. So, reusing, finding ways to like fix pieces that instead of just throwing them out. Thrifting is a big one. I love thrifting. Again, I wear like all of my pieces that I thrift as like a badge of honor. When people come and visit me at my house, I'm like, oh, I thrifted this. Oh, I thrifted that. I thrifted that. And it's
right. Yeah.
And it also gets other people excited too, to maybe go out and pursue that. If you make the effort to start looking at the amount of waste that even just your one single household puts out. Don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to shame anybody. Everybody has a million things going on, especially if you have a family and you have kids that, go through stuff like nothing else. There is a level of like balance where, you gotta keep your sanity. But I think that any effort, no matter how small, does make a difference. So the smallest things really can go far. Even reusing your plastic containers, your sour cream containers, your jugs, like reusing them and planting your seedlings in them. Like, I hoard all of my plastic containers and literally use them, repot, do propagation, take my propagation cuttings and put them in my little plastic containers and gift them to friends, family. Like, that's just another way that you're not saving the planet with your one little plastic container, but are you? ? Like, you're
doing your part. You're trying, right?
Yeah. Maybe it inspires your neighbor to do the same thing.
Let's Take This Outside now has a newsletter. Keep up to date with outdoor news, events, and great discount codes and deals from our partners. Sign up today at letstakethisoutside.ca.
We often hear about the benefits of rewilding landscapes. But what does that actually mean, and how can homeowners incorporate rewilding into their outdoor spaces?
I actually have a YouTube series coming out in the spring, and it's called Rewilding, is literally the name of the series. And so I can speak so much to this. To me, what rewilding landscapes means is, again, intentional actions to help restore that ecosystem to its natural state, removing non-native and invasive plants, not only removing them, but replacing them with native species that will ultimately invite back more native biodiversity, more native pollinators, birds, mammals, amphibians, all the animals. That's what rewilding landscapes means to me. And I think a really easy way that people can look at their own backyards and rewild them, so to speak, is to spend 5 minutes when you're at the garden center looking up that plant. Like, all iPhones now have the capability to take a photo and identify what that plant is straight away, or simply ask somebody who works there, hey, are these native or non-native plants? It's a uphill battle trying to encourage and enforce garden centers to remove not only non-native, but highly invasive species of plants from their stores. Like, people are going in and buying these plants and not realizing that, yes, you're planting something that's absolutely beautiful. And again, I'm not shaming people who love their dahlias and who love their miscanthus grasses, but I think that you can have a small percentage of that. That's okay. I mean, again, we're human and we love what we love. There is a native option of plant that exists for every non-native and invasive species that will give you like a very similar look. You're really making a physical impact, in my opinion, on that landscape by introducing species that our native insects rely on, and then our native birds then rely on, our native mammals and amphibians all rely on. So it might seem like it's such a small step to make by planting native species, but that's something that I'm doing here in my new home is starting in the spring, is going around pointing out non-native and more specifically invasive species of plants, pulling them out, discarding of them in a very safe way, because that's another thing that can happen is if you are just getting rid of your buckthorn and it spreads very viciously. So out here in Quebec, in fact, they have specific garbage days where they pick up invasive species of plants, doing it in a way that ensures that the plants are not being encouraged to grow in other spaces. Anyways, that's what we're doing starting in the spring. We're pulling out non-native and invasive species of plants. My entire property is covered in periwinkle. It's crazy. So that's going to be a big job, but bit by bit, I don't expect to do it all in one season. It's going to be a process. But then introducing native plants to really sort of restore and rewild this habitat.
Please tell me that the mossy boulder is natural and it's not native.
Oh yeah, the mossy boulder isn't going anywhere. Our mosses here are native and they're fine. I say that, but it's possible that there may be a species that is non-native, but as far as I know, the species of moss that are here are native and they're safe. Very safe, in fact.
I'm guessing that you're going to live there for a long time. You just move there. But why do I feel like if you do move, you're going to take that boulder?
Oh my God. That boulder is part of the family now. That boulder is never leaving my life. And also, yeah, I'm living here forever. This is our forever home.
Yeah. We should just do an episode on the boulder.
Oh, please. Honestly, I want to live on that boulder. Being beside it and being able to see it from the window is not enough. Like,
as a voiceover artist, I've always wanted, like, if I bought a house one day and like a nature, I'd want like a separate space, like almost like a shed for like a voiceover studio, like a soundproof studio. But what if you had like a rock coming out the middle? Like, what if you built this around the mossy rock? Is that possible?
At least around my mossy rock, no. But You could do that 100%. You can actually make moss milkshakes. Have you heard of this?
No.
Have you heard of a moss milkshake?
No.
You're intrigued. You're like, why do I want one? So there's this method actually for fellow moss lovers listening. You can take a scrape of moss, put it in a blender, and you basically add yogurt. I think that's all you need to add. I'm going to be doing a video in series about this in the spring. But
can you tag me in it?
Together, you blend it all, take a paintbrush, and you paint it onto chairs, onto rocks, onto trees, onto wherever you want moss to grow. And it will.
Cool.
And you can kind of like spread that moss to where you want it. It's spread.
Oh, so we're not drinking it. We're not eating the moss.
No, it's not.
Okay, that was misleading.
Drink? No.
Okay, misleading.
Yeah,
okay.
Misleading. I think it just ends up it does end up looking like a milkshake. I have done it before.
Cool.
Yeah, and it was just yogurt and moss, literally. So you could, if you build a studio out in nature, just get yourself a boulder and paint some moss milkshake on it.
If I do that, I'm hiring you to help with like rewilding and helping with everything.
We'll come for free and do that just for the joy of it. I don't get those opportunities very often where I get to like nerd out about moss with people.
Yeah. What is one eco-friendly trend in design that you're really excited about right now? And are there any trends you see fading out in popularity?
Trends that are fading out in popularity, believe it or not, I've noticed living walls are kind of fading out. And like so much so that I've even been hired to go in and remove living walls and replace them with moss walls. Again, these are more like commercial spaces where a living wall is a beautiful idea. Don't get me wrong. We've done living walls. We do living walls. I barely get contracts for them anymore because people are just like, they're gorgeous, but they are very expensive, a lot of maintenance. They tend to, really just those two big things, like a lot of maintenance and a lot of work.
That's enough. Yeah. That's enough to like get out. Yeah.
And they're expensive, right? Like you have to have a maintenance team come and service them every month. Otherwise it's all going to die. And you just paid $400 a square foot for this huge moss wall. So I kind of see the living walls kind of trending out and more of our like low maintenance moss walls trending in. But beyond that, the first part of your question was,
what do you find that you're really excited about? What eco-friendly trend in design that you're excited about was my question.
I'm really excited about, at least for outdoor design and like external landscaping, I'm excited about the idea of, again, like rewilding landscapes. If you've heard of Piet Odolphe and his process of creating landscapes within landscapes. So if you're looking at designing the external part of your house using a really beautiful variety of like plants that again are native, but planting them in a way that sort of create this like visual cadence of this blend of all the species together that like work really harmoniously together. I'm excited about that trend, which I do think is on the up and up. I'm going to be doing it here in my backyard. I'm planting a native wildflower garden to cut garden. So I can cut flowers and have fresh flowers in my house. I know I'm like, this is a dream of mine. So I'm using the Piet Odolphe design process of like kind of creating a landscape within a landscape and bunch planting different species together to sort of like, again, create this harmonious cadence of species that just like look really beautiful.
That sounds incredible. What are plant pills?
Plant pills are a product that I designed a few years ago now. I created plant pills, which are basically a probiotic for your plant. And this is after years and years and years of me going to the garden centers, the Home Depots, the Canadian Tires of the world, and looking for a fertilizer for my houseplants, and then learning about NPK values and what are fertilizers. And it just seemed so overwhelming that I never ended up really feeling connected to any of the fertilizers that you could just like buy off of the shelf. So I was going out and buying like individual bone meal, fish meal, molasses. I was buying worm castings, azomite, like all of these different ingredients, like individually by themselves, which was getting expensive, but adding them all together in my plants, seeing how much my plants were benefiting from them, that I thought, what if I could put all of these ingredients that I consider the all-star lineup of ingredients for your houseplants and put them into like one single pill that you could just pop into your plant. Doesn't matter what type of plant it is. It's your tomato garden, it's your herbs, it's your flowers, it's your orchids, it's your tropicals, your anthuriums, your violets, whatever it is. It's a one size fits all. It simplifies growing your green thumb, which again is something I've always felt really called to, is making horticulture and gardening accessible for everyone. Like, you don't need to have a horticulture degree. You don't need to have a biology degree. You don't need to have 100 plants to be a plant person. You can have one single plant and use plant pills, for example, that you know you're not going to burn your plant. You know you're giving it what it needs. You know that it's going to last you for 6 months to a year. Just knowing that you've purchased something that is not going to let you down. So that's what plant pills is. It's basically the 12 all-star ingredients that I consider all-star ingredients packed into one simple pill, all made in Canada, all organic. And they're freaking awesome. They literally bring the soil of your plants back to life, which not a lot of people realize, that your houseplants probably are living in dead soil. It's why they're not putting out new leaves. It's why they're not flowering. It's why they're looking dull. They're turning yellow. There could obviously also be a lengthy list of other things that are going on. But ever since I started using plant pills, my hibiscus plant in the back behind me here flowers every 6 weeks. It's insane. All winter long, this plant has been putting out blooms. My plants just bloom more. They are a lot more pest resistant. And this all has come from a place of just feeding my plants, even if it's not plant pills. Obviously, that's a shameless plug. But even if it's not my specific product, you should be feeding your plants. You should be bringing that soil back to life with fertilizers and organic compounds, minerals that really just nourish your plants differently. It's so important, especially if you're wanting to grow your green thumb.
I love this idea because as someone with like 20 plants, I'm very lucky because I have these huge like floor to ceiling walls or windows. So I get great light in the afternoon. So I have a lot of plants that do really well. My pink princess struggles. It looks a little haggard, to be totally honest. But for the most part, like, my plants look really good. But occasionally I'm like, am I overwatering this? What's happening? Maybe the soil's too old. Like, I just have so many questions. I have fertilizers that I'm like, ooh, when should I just have so many questions. But when you're self-employed, that's another like mental task that you don't want to think about. Imagine you have children and you're like, I don't know, I just want to keep this stupid thing alive, right? So the plant pills almost like takes out all the guessing, is what it feels like.
That's the intention for sure. Because I don't have kids, but I am in that space of like having a million things going on. And even as the urban botanist, I still feel like I don't have enough time to take care of my 100+ houseplants. So even that is another testament to how much I really needed something that was just, okay, easy, pop a few in. I know they're getting what they need and then some. I felt so many times when I was buying fertilizers, I was like, this kind of feels like I just wasted $30 and I don't know how often I should be doing it. Do I need to dilute it? Do I need to be doing it every week, every month? With plant pills, you can use them every day. You can use them once a month. You can use them once a quarter. You can never overuse the product. And really, essentially, the more you use it, the more your plants will be happy. So it's just easy. It's like mindless.
I wrote down to order some.
I'll just send you some.
We'll talk. Emma, as someone deeply connected to nature, how do you personally stay inspired and grounded? And do you have any rituals or habits that help you stay connected to the natural world?
Yeah, I love this. And I think, again, even as somebody who is inspired by nature, sure, anybody can use these practices, even if you don't feel inspired by nature. It naturally is just, it's so inspiring. So ways that I do this: putting my phone away on airplane mode, plugged in the house, and I leave it and I go out. And I don't even really leave my backyard. And even if you have a small backyard, that's fine. I just moved from suburbia, Canada. I had a postage stamp sized backyard, but I planted all these different flowers and bushes and trees. And I would just go out there with my coffee. Obviously the winter is a little bit different, but I still love going out in winter and looking at icicles and looking at how the snow is falling on the pine needles. And you can still really engage with nature in the winter, but just going out and just existing, just sitting, just being, noticing the little flies, the little native species of bees that are like popping over from flower head to flower head. Maybe you're noticing new growth on a plant. Let's say you're doing this indoors. I did this was part of my morning routine this morning, is going into my plant room and just observing. Literally just observing and seeing how my plants are interacting with each other, with their environment. Oh, wow, I just gave that plant some probiotics last week and she's thriving. She's putting out a new leaf. She's putting out a new flower. That really inspires me to not only continue to grow my green thumb and add more plants to my collection and engage more regularly with plants, but I end up walking away from those mindful moments, even if it's 5 minutes, feeling really rejuvenated and like ready to tackle a new task, ready to move on to the more mundane parts of my day, which everybody has. But other ways that I stay inspired is connecting with other like-minded people who also love nature. I recently met a neighbor of mine who I kind of like back onto. He is a wildlife photographer, and he inspired me I already love nature photography, and I take and post so many pictures and videos of plants and insects and stuff on my social media platforms. But he inspired me to look at nature in a different way during the winter. So I think connecting with other like-minded people in the space, even if that's online, it doesn't have to be with your neighbor or in person, IRL. Connecting with an account like mine who's maybe inspiring you to look at nature through a slightly different lens and capture it in a different way. I say leave your phone at home, but take your camera with you, because taking photos is also like a really great way to engage with your creativity, is make art, to use nature to make art, you know?
One of my favorite things to do, and remind me what time of year it is, but in Quebec, when all of the I'm trying to think what they're even, the terrariums come out.
Spring,
it's in spring, right? One of my favorite, because there's a trail in Gatineau Park that are totally lined with like white and pink and red terrariums, and I love taking pictures of them every year because they're just so beautiful.
You don't need to be a photographer to do that either, right? Like you can go out and do it with any camera.
Emma, please plug your website and your YouTube series.
So you can find me at The Urban Botanist on Instagram, on TikTok, on YouTube. I'm on all the platforms these days. My website is www.theurbanbotanist.ca. And you can find me on YouTube as well at The Urban Botanist, where I post weekly videos, planty videos, how-to videos, crafty stuff. But that's where you can find me online.
Thank you so much for sharing your love of plants and nature and animals and all of the things. And so nice to catch up with you too. Thanks, Emma.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for listening. For more Let's Take This Outside, go to letstakethisoutside.ca.
Produced and distributed by the Sound Off Media Company.